Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you're listening to The Sounds of Film, and I am very excited to have on the phone with us today a true legend, one of my personal favorites, Wallace Shawn. We're going to be speaking today about a new collection that Criterion's put out called Three Films. About the films of Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn, including My Dinner with Andre, Vanya on 42nd Street, and A Master Builder. I'm a big fan of Wallace's film work. You probably know him from these movies as well as his more mainstream films like Princess Bride and Toy Story. I'm also a huge admirer of his books, his plays. One of my personal favorites is your collection of essays, so hopefully we can talk about that as well. Wallace, thank you so much for joining us on The Sounds of Film.
How great.
Well, what a collection. This is a beautiful collection that Criterion's put out, the three films. Tell me a little bit about how you first met Andre Gregory.
Well, I was, I suppose, a miserable young man. I'd written many, many plays and had submitted them in an envelope to many different theaters in England and America, usually without getting an answer of any kind. I didn't even know that people had agents. If I were going to advise someone, I would say they should get an agent before doing what I did. But anyway, I had a mutual friend, Renata Adler, a wonderful writer, with she knew Richard Avedon, who was best friends with Andre Gregory. And I knew Renata through what you'd have to call connections. She worked for my dad. So she said, "You've got to go and see this play, Alice in Wonderland." And I didn't really want to go because I felt that the type of theater that I was interested in was more literary, and I understood that his play was very wild. I think I was frightened of seeing it. I understood that the actors, screamed and yelled and did circus tricks. And but I did go to it, and I ended up seeing it about 35 times because I sort of fell in love with it.
Wow.
And anyway, after I'd seen it just 2 times, I introduced myself to Andre, the director, and I was a repressed, rather frightened little man. And I thought of him and his company as being very, very far out and did all the things that I was afraid of, because I'm sort of a child of the 60s, but it was too frightening for me. And I didn't really take advantage of all the wonderful things that were going on then. But I thought of Andre as just so far out. But anyway, I thought, what the hell, because nobody else liked my plays, and I was so excited by his play, even sort of ecstatic about it. I gave him an envelope with a bunch of my plays in it, and to my amazement, he actually liked these plays. This was in about 1970.
Wow.
And I, meanwhile, had gone to Cedar Falls, Iowa, by myself to sit in a rather inexpensive hotel there, $4 a night, and I was writing a miserable play there. And I had given him my number, I believe, and he called me, and he said, "Well, we're working on an Ibsen play, my company and I, Peer Gynt, and we need someone, a writer, to help us. And I've read your plays. I love your plays. We need someone to sort of adapt Peer Gynt or cut it or something. So please come and work with the company.
Wow.
That's how I met him.
So from that point on, what has your friendship been like, and how does that friendship then translate into a working relationship?
Well, I first of all failed to think of how to do the adaptation of Peer Gynt, and I suggested that perhaps I could write a play myself for the company.
Oh.
And this is something that, well, I suppose, again, if I were advising somebody, I would say, maybe you could write a play for specific actors, but don't tell them. Because when I told them, oh, I wrote these parts just for you, they took it the wrong way in many cases.
Why is that?
Well, my thought was that these were experimental artists afraid of nothing, because I'd watched them rehearse, but I didn't know them personally. It wasn't my idea that I would write a play that reflected anything about them personally. How could I? I didn't know them. I thought I was just writing something that would be challenging to each of them as creative artists. But they took it personally, and they thought, oh, that's what you think I'm like. Well, it really had nothing to do with that, but started things off on the wrong foot. And, well, history, we can't say why things happen, but let's be frank, the company that had lasted for many years, through the course of rehearsing my play, it wasn't a happy experience, and ultimately there was a kind of a disintegration of the company.
As a result of doing your play?
Well, it couldn't have only been that, but certainly the play didn't help.
Wow.
And certainly there were those in the company who thought, okay, it's a good thing to do an experimental play by a young writer, and there were others who thought, well, this is vile trash that really shouldn't be done by anybody, much less us. And Andre, meanwhile, was becoming interested in many different things. Outside of, he wanted to understand himself and the universe better. And ultimately, he said, well, I'm going to get out of theater and I'm just going to explore life, really. And so for a period of a few years, he didn't work in theater, and meanwhile, he had sort of been the first person in the professional theater to accept me, and hello?
Yes, I'm listening.
I felt thrilled to finally be in theater.
Wow.
He wanted to get out of it.
So that was tough for you at that point.
But then eventually he came back and said, well, why don't we do something? I'd like to do something now in theater. And I said, well, let's do something based on us, because it's really quite funny, the contrast between us, because you have done these remarkable things, and I have a sort of funny attitude about it, which is part jealousy, part skepticism.
Right.
Um,
And is this what led to My Dinner with Andre?
yes, ultimately we made My Dinner with Andre, which is based on us. Although we're characters. It's not a documentary. It's a piece of writing that is about two characters, but the characters are based on us.
Well, let me ask you about your character. In the film, at one point, you say that you grew up as an aristocrat, and now all you think about is money, and that kind of starts a whole conversation. What was that all about?
Well, I had a very privileged upbringing, and I did really spend a lot of my childhood listening to records and reading books and going to the ballet. And then by the time I was writing My Dinner with Andre, I was in my 30s, my middle 30s, and I was, living. I was no longer privileged, and no longer really. I couldn't. I was trying to pay bills and trying to live, and my girlfriend and I were, worried about, what we could afford, and we were obviously thinking about money.
Yeah.
And not in a sort of carefree way, spending all that much time just going to the ballet.
Yeah, so this was real for you at that point, the challenges
because
with money.
I had no, not only no income except borrowing from friends.
Wow.
And my girlfriend worked as a waitress. But I also really had no idea of how I was going to make a living in my life.
Because I listened to a lot of interviews that you do, and I read your book of essays just to jump around just a little bit, and you talk a great deal about the 1% and their control over the working class and everyone in society, and it seems like an issue that it still seems like you're talking a lot about money, but I'm sure your circumstances today are very different than around the time of My Dinner with Andre. Why is this something that you're still so concerned about today?
Well, I mean, I think that from the time I was a teenager, I started being upset about coming from a privileged background and sort of horrified by that. And I think it's a kind of pollution that you can't ever escape, I'm sorry to say. That quite apart from... I'm a divided person. Obviously, I have the same bourgeois addictions that anybody else who's been raised in a bourgeois way tends to have. I have a strong desire to be comfortable, to have the privileges that I grew up with, and these desires are very easy to acquire, and if you're already addicted to them, it's even worse. But on the other hand, I I do believe that that privilege is wrong, and that the class I belong to is out of control, and is, in order to keep its privileges, is subjugated the human beings who are not in that class, and oppressed them and crushed them, and has even, undertaken to destroy the entire planet. So, I have some divided feelings. As an individual,
Yeah.
I would like to have air conditioning at all moments.
Right.
I really, I'm second to none in my desire for bourgeois comfort. But on the other hand, I frankly would think that if my class were, rudely shocked by the arrival of revolutionaries who would take their stuff away, that would be appropriate.
That's interesting. Even as far back as My Dinner with Andre, I think one of your lines in the movie deals with the idea that you're not looking to get rid of comforts. Rather, you're looking for relief and comfort because life is really tough. I think your character says something to those, to that extent.
But I mean, in that film,
it was different.
Only playing the one side of myself.
Yeah.
I'm playing the bourgeois side and the complacent side, and that was one of my intentions, really, in writing that script, was to lay that bourgeois self out for examination, with the goal of trying to rise above that.
Well, it's admirable because I think a lot of people in your position sort of downplay their status, at least to the public. In your book of essays, you mentioned something along the lines of that people enjoy their freedom, and that you look at freedom and you look at the current state of America, and that you realize that there are certain people that you know that have come to a certain peace in their life, that enjoy their freedom based on the fact that they understand that man is predatory, and that once you accept that, that can either be something that brings you feelings of conflict, or it could be something that you just embrace and go after it. I was wondering, again, this dilemma. Can you tell me, it's a theme it seems like that you go back to quite a bit, and also how does it apply directly to one of the films in this collection, A Master Builder?
Well, the character that I play in The Master Builder is the ultimate controller. I mean, he is what we all should be afraid of, the sort of marauding, predatory male monster who, when his reaction to whatever he sees is he wants to control it. But on his deathbed, you could say, in his last moments, he sort of begins to think better of it and is wondering, what in the world have I been, really? What kind of a person was I in my life? How did I treat other people? And I think, in my essay that you're talking about, written with a certain irony because it is absolutely true. It was sort of written in the Reagan period when these reactionary ideas were just beginning to be popular. Now they're dominant, really. The idea that man is predatory, and hey, let's enjoy it. You know, if you're rich, that means you won, and how terrific. And you know, the Reagans sort of popularized the idea that being rich is good, and triumphing over others is kind of fun. It's great. And, well, that, you know, is ultimately, it can't go on forever because, you know, the planet is being destroyed and will eventually, you know, put an end to human life if these attitudes persist. And, of course, poor people don't really accept the idea that they should be crushed and that they should devote their lives to serving the rich. I mean, they don't agree. So these ideas of let's be predatory are ultimately not going to... They'll get an individual quite far, but ultimately they're not going to triumph.
When I read your stuff and I watch some of your films, I'm never quite sure always what your true feelings are regarding the poor. At times I feel you're speaking on their behalf, fighting for them. And then there are other times you seem frustrated with them. I forget if you said it in an interview or you wrote it somewhere. I think you said something along the lines of that you seem amazed that the people that make up the 99% aren't more upset, that they're not rioting in the streets, that they don't seem to understand what's being done to them.
Well, I mean, I'm upset, but it makes my life easier.
Right.
I mean, I myself, as you hinted, have had good fortune, if you call it that, twice. I mean, in other words, I was born into privilege. Then I became, you know, more or less a lower middle class poor slob like everybody else. And then, because of, I don't know, having a funny face and a funny voice, through sheer chance, I became an actor and, you know, did reasonably well. I mean, not at the moment, but for quite a while, and got away with a lot, and, you know, achieved... I mean, I'm still certainly downward mobile, if you want to look at it that way. But in the sense, almost everyone I know is less well off than their parents were.
Mm.
But I've had good fortune in that regard, and I'm not... well, let's say my borrowing is on a higher level these days.
Right. You know, besides just the economic side of things, one other topic that you seem to explore quite a bit, particularly in one of your plays, is this idea of highbrow art and lowbrow art. And as you already mentioned, you have such a fascinating career, a unique one in the sense that you've done it all. You know, you're in mainstream big comedies and so forth, and people know you for that. And you're also a serious, acclaimed writer and actor. We're talking today about 3 films out on Criterion: My Dinner with Andre, Vanya on 42nd Street, A Master Builder. You write essays. this is stuff that you're very serious about. How do you deal with the fact that you have these strong beliefs about art, and that you live in a society that doesn't always cherish that, and yet you live in both of those worlds?
Well, I don't. I don't. I'm not thoughtful enough to really have probably realized how contradictory my life is. I just feel, I feel incredible gratitude that I've been able to. I live mostly off cartoons.
Right.
I do the voices of animals in cartoons, as that's how I live, really. Sometimes I play humans in cartoons, but this is a miracle that somehow I've been able to spend a lifetime writing sort of rather strange plays that have never, reached more of an audience than a strange cult. And I've been able to do that because I have somehow been granted the opportunity to be an animal voice provider.
Do you get any kind of satisfaction other than the fact that it allows you to live and do other work that you enjoy? Do you derive any pleasure from doing those other projects?
Oh, I absolutely adore acting. I love acting, and it's been very a joyful element in my life, because otherwise I would just have been, unhealthily sitting behind a desk, never doing anything else. For me, acting is, and what I write is mostly, theater. So I'm learning, about writing for actors any day that I spend being an actor. And I love acting. And in fact, I've become, quite, over the years, ambitious as an actor, and sort of sought out to, been bitter because I didn't get better parts. I'm very into it, and so whether it's if I'm playing a warthog in a coon, which is one of my main animals, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's very, it takes all I've got, if you want to look at it that way. I don't...
I just did a great interview with Tom Kenny, who does SpongeBob, and it was fascinating. And, I admire what he does. It's not easy.
It's very, very hard, and it takes all your concentration and mind and spirit.
One of the things I like, though, that you're so nice to do is that you're honest about your feelings, even when they're not always things that normally people would want to share. You said you're ambitious and sometimes even bitter that you don't get certain roles or whatever. You said in an interview at one point that you were amazed. You do a chapter in your book, an interview with Noam Chomsky, and I think at some point you said that you've always been sort of amazed that Noam Chomsky, he's a giant. He's an intellectual. He's done so much, and yet he'll do these small articles for like publications that no one's ever heard of. And you were wondering, like, isn't he a little bit more ambitious, and shouldn't he be striving at least to get his stuff in the Nation or something like that? And you yourself, it seems like, sometimes you can do a play that's seen by a small number of people, or it could be something a little bit bigger. But then I heard you say something that well, maybe you can explain it. Doesn't he have some kind of philosophy that even if you do these small things, that it can spread? And
He does. I mean, and I have been very inspired by him in that, well, in many ways, but in that way too, that he sort of doesn't think it's the job of a thinker, or by analogy, a writer, to be his own publicist or agent. I mean, he has the confidence that if he writes something in a tiny publication with a tiny circulation, that it's going to find its own way to influence the world. And in his case, it's absolutely been true. He's made zero effort to publicize himself, and yet, over the years, his thoughts have become incredibly well known.
And how does that work then for someone like you? You have this collection out now, 3 films. I'm speaking with Wallace Shawn, and I mean, I could certainly see it with My Dinner with Andre, but maybe in your own words, I know we have to kind of wrap this up, but when people look back at your career and the plays that you've written and the movies that you've done with Andre Gregory, what is it that you hope will come out of these works?
Well, I mean, I obviously, I didn't think I would feel this, but it turns out I actually am quite interested in what will happen to me after my own death. I mean, I don't mean me, but I would love these 3 films to become more generally seen, and I don't think it'll happen while I'm alive, because there may not be that much time left. But I mean, I'm perfectly healthy. Maybe I'll live for a long time, but it would be great to imagine, because I do think, Andre is a kind of theatrical genius, and we have worked in a very, very unusual way on Uncle Vanya and the Master Builder of Ibsen. And I think, and we've worked, over a period of years, which is in itself extremely unusual. And I sort of, yes, I would love to think that people will increasingly see those films and find value in what we did. I mean, I'm very proud of them.
And you should be.
I sort of, yes, I'm quite into their reputation after my death. I mean, a lot of people, Henry James, or you name it, a lot of people, well, even Schubert,
right?
They were not that well known until they died. But Schubert is, he's a hot composer today. And some of the things that some of his greatest pieces were just kind of sitting in a drawer. I mean, when he died, people had never played them, and they weren't even discovered for decades.
Well, even just to make the comparison again to Chomsky, he may not be known on a wide scale to like the average person, but for people that know him, when he shows up and gives a speech, he's like a rock star. And I know that on occasion that's the way it is with you too. I've seen you before, and for those people that are familiar with your work and your films, we know that there's something special there and something that has deep meaning. And I'm hoping that more people do reach out and see these movies if they haven't already. Wallace, I know we have to wrap this up, but it's really been a true pleasure. I'm hoping that everyone goes out and gets 3 films. It's a collection of Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn's films, My Dinner with Andre, Vanya on 42nd Street, and The Master Builder. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on The Sounds of Film, and I hope that we can speak again one day.
Well, thank you so much. It was great.
All right, thanks again. Have a great day.